And of course, not to what to speak about the mediocre private universities that have come about across the country. So, you cannot build a world-class education system, a world-class law school, without focusing on recruitment and retaining of outstanding faculty members as teachers, researchers, and institution builders. The fourth, and something which we do well in India, and that's one of the positive things we do very well, at least among our public institutions and a few private institutions, meritorious and transparent admissions process. World-class institutions are expected to retain the confidence of the community at large, and people should be able to trust the admissions process. It should be independent, it should be based upon transparent criteria, and students ought to be selected through that. And that is the way they acquire the reputation. And something which I believe our Indian law schools, most good law schools in India, do better than many others, is to have a meritorious and transparent admissions process. Of course, how you select them, one can debate about it. I'm personally a very strong supporter of the LSAT as opposed to CLAT, not only because of the fact that CLAT is methodologically a problematic exam, because I find it very odd for students to be studying general knowledge and legal aptitude and mathematics for those who want to study law. On the other hand, LSAT and examination uses logical reasoning and analytical reasoning and comprehension to assess the ability of the students to pursue law. But be that as it may, the idea of an independent, transparent selection process is important. The fifth aspect of a world-class law school and university is its strong emphasis on research and knowledge creation. In fact, universities are the heart of it, are research institutions. The ability to create knowledge and constantly working in the realm of ideas is what law schools ought to be pursuing. And in that process, law schools have a very unique role to pursue research that is also contributing to what I call strengthening the rule of law, and indeed ensuring that the democratic institutions that are established in society are accountable to law. And so research that are in many ways helping our effort to build a rule of law society is central to building a world-class law school. But then the sixth aspect is a related aspect of it, which is that where we perform very badly is the faculty contribution to research and publications. Unfortunately, most of Indian universities, and of course, almost all of Indian law schools, are at best teaching institutions. At worst, they don't do both teaching and research well. You cannot build a world-class law school without emphasizing on research, knowledge creation, but also publications, the need for having research centers contributing to research, the need for contributing to research that gets published and that gets cited, that gets discussed, debated, and even at times included in policy and legislative reforms. In fact, one of the tragedies of Indian legal education is the fact that we have not been able to create that avenue of academics contributing to research, which in turn gets referred by judges and used by courts and is contributing to the interpretation of law, the evolution of law, the constant discussions that happen in academic forums, which in turn informs the application and the evolution and the reforms that ought to take place in the field of law. And that, I believe, is the sixth characteristic of a world-class law school. The seventh characteristic of, that's about the environment in relation to where these law schools can emerge. World-class law schools can emerge only when there is a regulatory and governance and regulatory environment that enables such a thing. Unfortunately, the situation that we are having today with over 20 regulatory bodies regulating higher education and with varying degrees of contradictions and conflicts that take place, the kind of academic institutions in our country, law schools, have lost their autonomy. They no longer can decide pretty much anything they would like to in the best interest of the students. I cannot think of any world-class law school, world-class university, which is dependent upon so many external bodies to do what it needs to do, from curriculum development to course structuring, to recruitment of faculty, to admission of students, to development of research agenda. In fact, today, if you are a vice-chancellor of a university or vice-chancellor of a law university, you're supposed to be pretty much focusing on higher education law. You need to be constantly mindful of the weekly guidelines and regulatory bodies, circulars that one received from UGC and others. As if that was not enough, our judges and courts have also come into higher education regulation in a very significant manner. And with all due respect to our judiciary, there have been many judgments across, including judgments of High Court, sometimes even the Supreme Court, which at times have been contradictory. And so with that 20 plus regulatory bodies and the jurisprudence that gets constantly developed through the High Courts and Supreme Court, one gets very busy as a vice-chancellor trying to ensure that you are adhering to the law. The contradictory evolution of higher education law and the regulatory environment under which law schools are governed create a very divisive environment in which it has increasingly become very difficult to govern our universities and law schools. And so I have always believed that our law schools are over-regulated and under-governed, and we need to do something about it. The eighth characteristic of world-class law schools, something which when I went to law school nearly 20 years ago was not something significant, but today it has become significant. It's about internationalization and global education and global engagement. No longer students can actually pursue legal education purely from the standpoint of its domestic orientation. Law schools and universities need to provide opportunities for students to not just study international law, comparative law, and law relating to other legal systems, but also provide opportunities for students to have those experiences. Geography has become history, and legal practice has also become much more globalized. Even if you were to practice law in domestic settings, increasingly there is going to be significant influence and impact on law relating to other jurisdictions. And that is what international engagement and internationalization ought to be doing. Students are increasingly seeking opportunities for pursuing student exchange programs, dual degree programs, short-term study abroad programs, and the law schools which expect to provide world-class education ought to fashion these opportunities for students. And these opportunities should be two-way, in which students from around the world are coming into Indian law schools just as Indian students are going abroad for these opportunities. The ninth aspect of a world-class law school, which I think is one of the significant challenges the five-year law schools are facing today, is the lack of interdisciplinarity. In fact, the idea of single discipline institutions has gone through significant challenges over the years. I must say that this problem of having the study of law as a five-year program misses the larger context of the need for studying sociology, history, political science, literature, economics, and others. So, in a way, the need for changing the approach towards interdisciplinarity is essential at multiple levels, and our law students should be given an opportunity to cross-register courses across the entire gamut of humanities and social sciences. The last aspect, which is the 10th aspect, is our strong emphasis on what I call creating a diverse, inclusive community in which our students are able to provide access to education that may not be available at a reasonable cost. A cost has become a prohibiting factor, and in many ways we need to create opportunities in the form of resources which comes through both scholarships and fellowships, but also through philanthropy in private higher education system. The reality is the future of legal education is hugely dependent upon our ability to start thinking about quality and excellence. We need to recognize that no longer we can sustain this institutionalized form of mediocrity that is embedded in our legal education. It has a direct and a deleterious impact on the legal profession. Both the quality of lawyers and I dare say the quality of judges has unfortunately impacted because of our lack of efforts to ensure quality in legal education. So I want to end by saying that we need to think in terms of legal education as the foundations of our democracy. We need to think in terms of how legal education can shape the future of our democratic institutions. In fact, there was a point of time in history, lawyers shaped the foundations of Indian Republic. Mahatma Gandhi was a lawyer, Rajendra Prasad was a lawyer, Sardar Patel was a lawyer, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a lawyer, Dr. Ambedkar was a lawyer. In fact, good part of the Nehruvian cabinet had lawyers who fought for the freedom movement, but also took leadership in pretty much laying the foundations of the nascent republic. Unfortunately, over the last several decades, we have lost sight of the important role that lawyers played and could play in strengthening our democratic institutions. I would like to appeal to all of us here that let us work towards reimagining the state of legal education so that we can work towards building institutions of excellence for the future. Thank you.